What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be reviewing the second villain pack for Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. This adds the Machine Empire to the game. You can tell it says Machine Empire here on the box. It is once again, of course, designed by Jonathan Ying and published by Renegade Games. Now I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who's going to tell you more about the game itself.
This is, of course, a cooperative expansion since it's based on the game that's cooperative.
Yes.
It's for 2 to 5 or 2 to 6 players, depending on the expansion or not, correct?
Yes, you can also play solo, but you're going to be playing multi-handed. So Julie's got it right. You really need to play with 2 players.
It is intended for ages 14 and above, and we've said this if you've seen our other Power Rangers videos. The box says 45 to 60 minutes. Definite lie.
Yeah. You can maybe do it in that time if you have more players, but when we play, we usually play 3-handed. We each have 3 Rangers. Takes us about an hour and a half to 2 hours. But then again, we also take our time to make sure we pull off the combos, which is why the game says 14 plus. It's all about scoring those big hits on the villains.
So, what about this game, Jason?
Well, if you've seen other Power Rangers videos, you know what the basics are. For those of you that are watching this for the first time, I suggest you take a look at the card that's popping up. That'll take you back to our playlist. What?
You're pointing in my face.
Yeah, well, that's where it goes. The card goes over your head. You're on that side. So, in any case, there'll be a card that'll take you back to our full Power Rangers playlist. You can see our other videos about the game. The basics are you take on the roles of the Power Rangers. You'll be fighting villains and defending the city of Angel Grove from the forces of evil. Now, in this second villain pack, you do have the Machine Empire that joins the game. It will be King Mondo leading his forces. You also have the infamous Louie Kaboom. You have Prince Gasket and Archerina, who are the first villain that can also be played together. That's right. So you get a little bit more variety, as well as the Machine Empire's General Vengeance. Now, he's featured only one episode, the Forever Red episode, which was pretty badass. Well, I think we've talked enough about this expansion, so we're going to show you the components. But before that,
we're going to grab our drink.
Grab our best friend and currently fellow Power Ranger.
We're going to take it to the table one more time.
One more time. We still got to face off against Louie Kaboom.
And apparently we have to set up everything again.
It happens. Now let's take a look at the components for Villain Pack 2, the Machine Empire. We're going to start with the rules that we get here. So it's just a rules sheet. Shows you the components. And then it does have the rules for the new paired monsters that we'll take a look at in a moment that get added to this game. So we'll start with the big bads. We've got 2 new bosses. We have Louie Kaboom, who is one of my favorites because he brought the Gold Ranger, well, Jason back as the Gold Ranger. Loved it. Big bad villain. We, of course, have his boss monster card to add to our choices. And then let's take a look at his cards. So, guard, deal 3 damage to each Ranger with bombardment. Bunker Buster. Each Ranger must discard the top card and bottom card of their deck. Explosive Entrance, roll 1 die and deal 3 times that much damage to each Ranger. That's nasty. We have Shotgun Awe, deal 3 damage to each Ranger, and skip the next Ranger turn in the battle. You really don't want this to be the last fast card you draw. And then Warhead, this card cannot be dealt damage until all other Louie Kaboom cards have been defeated. And at the end of the battle, you will deal 6 damage to each Ranger. Oof. Not fun at all. Then we've got King Mondo, and it's an awesome mini with plenty of detail on it. So we've got the Machine Empire King, of course, his boss card. Let's take a look at his stuff. Imperial Fist, deal 4 damage. The Ranger who suffers this damage must discard 1 random card from their hand. Machine King, fast and passive. While this card is in play, each time a Ranger rolls a dice for an attack, you remove 1 die from the attack and place 1 hit token on the card, but at least you still hit the card. Sword of Damocles, deal 10 damage to each Ranger. Reduce that damage by 1 for each hit token on this card, so want to take that out right away. Thunder Wave, deal. You know what's going to be great for this? Dragon Zord in battle mode. Thunder Wave, deal 4 damage to each Ranger. Tyrant Barrage, deal 2 damage to each Ranger twice. He just loves hitting the whole group. So, nasty stuff coming out of King Mondo. Then, of course, we've got Princess Archerina. We have her monster card, and there's a second monster card for her and Gasket, which is placed. I just put it here. So we have their paired monster card, Prince Gasket and Princess Archerina. Now, not quite sure how that is going to work. We will probably do a quick explanation as a how to play portion right after we get through the components. So Princess Archerina, Enchanting Arrow. One ranger must discard all attack cards from their hand. If they discarded fewer than 2 cards, deal 4 damage to that ranger. So she'll take one person out of the fight. You want to get rid of this as fast as you can. Guard, deal 4 damage to the ranger with the most cards in their hand. Lover's Barrage, deal 2 damage to each ranger. Then if any Prince Gasket or Princess Archerina cards have been defeated or discarded, deal 3 damage to each ranger. Lover's Shot, while this card is in play, each time a ranger deals damage to an enemy card with Fast or Guard, they must discard the top card of their deck. Really want to try to take out groups of cards as fast as possible. So we've got Prince Gasket. Cool looking mini. Also great looking villains, I gotta say. And then we have his monster card. So let's take a look at his cards. So we've got Disarming Slash. The ranger with the most cards in their hand must place 1 random card from their hand on top of their deck. Then deal 4 damage to that ranger. Duelist Stance. While this card is in play, each time a ranger deals damage to this card, they must discard the top card of their deck. On Guard, deal 4 damage with Fast and Guard. Then Lover's Barrage, which we already saw. Then lastly, we've got General Vengeance from the Forever Red special. And yes, he does look like a beetle because this model was originally from Big Bad Beetleborgs. Here you've got his monster card. Here we've got the Big Bad Beating, referencing Big Bad Beetleborgs. So the lead ranger must discard cards from the top of their deck until they have discarded at least 3 shields or are defeated. Machine Empire Elite. While this card is in play, the shield value of all combat cards with exactly 3 shields goes down to 2. Shadowclaw, deal 3 damage to the lead ranger twice. Thunderburst, deal 3 damage to each ranger. So there you have it. These are the components for the Machine Empire Pack number 2. We'll briefly explain how to use the paired monsters, which is new in this expansion, or you may see it if you do have Rise of the Psycho Rangers. Then Julie and I will be coming back at you with a review of the game. Well, expansion in this case. Power Rangers, Heroes of the Grid, the Machine Empire villains. What did you think of this expansion to the game?
Well, I never remember the names, I'm sorry, but one of them was a pretty hard villain, boss, whatever.
Well, that was King Mondo, actually, the one that had the 10 health card. Yeah, that was him. Definitely have to say, probably the hardest villain in the game. One of the only reasons we succeeded is we were playing as the Space Rangers, and it was the one time that Cassie's Satellite Stunner came in very handy. We had to soak some damage, but being able to just drop 9 damage on the card was awesome.
It was. Yeah, the weird bug guy wasn't that hard.
General Vengeance. No, he had some strong cards. I think he was just a solid monster, but nothing special. I have to say that if we're talking about Prince Gasket and Archerina, the other 2 monsters, I do feel that they're very thematic to their characters. But as solo monsters, I really didn't find that they brought all that much new to the game. If you've got a lot of monsters, you got the Kickstarter box, I don't think you're really buying this for the monsters per se. But I really like them as the twin monster when you actually take both of their miniatures and put it on the board. And in order to defeat them, you have to defeat 2 of each of their cards. Now, we typically clear the monsters. It's one of the advantages of playing with 6 Rangers. It's a lot harder when you're playing with some lower player counts. Well, what did you think about that aspect of the game?
Well, I thought it was, it's interesting. Is it game-changing? No, but it's a neat little difference.
Yeah, I think that this expansion adds just a lot of variety, and I really enjoy having more variety in monsters. I do feel like this pack is missing something, though, because we're getting all of these Machine Empire villains, but we don't have any of their foot soldiers. So that is something that I feel was just is a little disappointing. I think it's a solid expansion and addition, and we'll talk a little bit more about Louis Kaboom. He was actually quite interesting and had some cool new mechanics as well. But just these characters without the foot soldiers, I don't know. it's not really my favorite addition to the game. So let's talk about Louis Kaboom a little bit here. What did you think of his cards, especially that fast card where you have to roll a die and he potentially explodes?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I kept rolling blanks, so we were safe from
Yeah,
that.
3 times 0 is 0, everyone. Just
Yes.
don't forget that.
Yes. So I guess I was rolling very poorly during that game, and I guess that helped us out because I kept rolling blanks, which helped us out in that case.
I will say though that we talked about the monsters, we talked a little bit about King Mondo, but let's dive into the bosses, because here's where I think this expansion really shines in terms of the content that you're getting. The bosses are really, really hard. They have a lot of skills that hit every ranger for massive amounts of damage.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I found that it was we were being hit a lot. It was pretty tough. You had to be in pretty good shape, and typically we come into the last round a little banged up. So I mean, it was a little closer than it normally is, but we don't typically have all that much trouble playing this game.
No, and that's because we're playing 6 Rangers, which does make the game a little bit easier. But I mean, hey, if you watch Power Rangers, it's always better when there's a 6th Ranger. So we typically have 6 Zords and the Megazord. I have to say, though, King Mondo, like, it was really close. I don't think we would have lost the game, but we were probably like one bad roll away from going a whole other round with the King, which is something that we really didn't want to do because then we're respawning areas, and that opens up the potential to lose to Panic. And we were playing as the Space Rangers against him, and they're solid, but they're still not the strongest team. So when we were facing off against Louis Kaboom, we decided to bring, well, these are the villains of the Zeo Rangers, so we brought the Zeo Rangers, and Julie just had some fun wrecking house.
Mm-hmm. It was fun.
I have to say, I still think the Zeo Rangers are the most powerful Rangers, at least that we've seen in the game, in particular just because some of the ways they can just deal damage to all of the cards, which did make things a lot easier. But if you're playing 5 Rangers, if you're looking for some more enemies, I definitely think that you want to add these characters to the game. Now, if you want to see us talk more about like just the way the bosses work and a lot of the mechanics, I highly recommend checking out our review on how to play of the original Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. We go into a lot more details. This is really an expansion review. We really want to just give an overview as to what the new, well, what you're getting in here that's new, and if there's really any value for you to add this to your game. Is there anything that you want to add at all, Julie? I know I've kind of been running the show on this one.
You always do with the Power Rangers, and that's okay.
Not all the time. You had a lot to say in our Heroes of the Grid review and Shattered Grid. And you typically talk a lot more when we got the big boxes rather than these small ones.
Probably, yeah.
Or when we get the Rangers.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go first. What is your score for this expansion, Villain Pack number 2, the Machine Empire?
So I'm going to say, again, I'm going to preface this as saying my knowledge of Power Rangers comes from the fact that we've played these games. I'm not the biggest fan of Power Rangers. Jason is. He loves them.
Age difference. That's the main reason why. Age difference.
Yes,
I'm a boy and she's a girl.
So much younger than you, that's why. So I would say for me, this expansion, these villains basically and bosses, I think there are other boxes you can get that are probably to me more fun. That being said, this was fun. I think it's if you like the content, if you like these characters, or if you want a little bit harder bosses, I think this is definitely something you should consider. On that note, for me, I give this a 6.5.
No, and I'm actually going to agree with you. I think this expansion is a 6.5. I feel that the addition of the cogs and having the foot soldiers to really flesh out the Machine Empire and just add that little bit of missing variety would have taken it over the top. I think the shining points are really the joint card for Prince Gasket and Archerina. King Mondo and Louis Kaboom are very difficult villains. But as Julie said, if you don't have all of the content already, there are some other boxes you can try to get. Now, if you're not able to get the Kickstarter exclusive box, which is still hands down the best box you can buy if you only have the base game, this is probably be the villain box that I'd recommend, unless you're just a huge Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan, then get box 1 because they'll be adding some more of your favorite characters. But difficulty-wise, this is the better box. I think we can both agree on that.
Yeah, so on that note, it's time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And take a look down below. In the video description, you'll find links to all of our social media feeds: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, If you would like to see pictures of Julie and I playing against the Machine Empire, there'll be plenty of those pictures on the feeds. Probably mixed in with some of our pictures of us playing Rise of the Psycho Rangers, which is definitely a big box that you should be checking out if you are a fan of the game. You can also find our review to that showing up in the playlist that'll be linking once again in just a moment. And down below there, as well as our link to multizone.ca, great Canadian game store. Click that link, get 10% off your next purchase, buy some Power Rangers content, and it's a great way to support the channel because a portion of your purchase is returned to us. Then popping up in front of me is going to be a link to one of our most recently released videos, well, our most recent release. And over there in front of Julie will be a link to our Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid playlist, so you can find all of the great Power Rangers content that we've done. And this video brings us now up to date with the last cycle of Heroes of the Grid. We got some more stuff coming. Not sure when it's going to get to the table, probably when we get a gap in the next few months, as we're fairly busy. So stay tuned for that as well.
So it's time to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend. We're no longer Rangers. We're not playing anymore.
We are, however, going to
Keep playing games.